missing skill within our evangelism efforts. Many of us might think we're much better at listening than we actually are. At least that's very true of me. My family has graciously confirmed that time and time again. The first time I led a listening-based evangelism group on Alpha some years ago, I realized just how stinking difficult it was. I kept wanting to jump in with a rebuttal or an answer or a Bible verse or the 5 ontological reasons why God exists or a great book recommendation. It is so tough to rewire all these old habits. Good listening entails a lot more than simply remaining silent while someone actually talks. People label someone a good listener when the listener is asking engaging questions that take the conversation into new areas, questions that show not only was the person paying attention, but they're interested in the conversation and desire additional information. Good listening builds up the speaker's self-esteem. This could be summed up in one main thought. You will be an effective listener if, at the end of the conversation, the person doing the talking feels like it was a positive experience. This includes creating a safe space where differences can be talked about, not hidden. This is one of the key emphases of Alpha groups. Good listening is experienced as a cooperative conversation. We'll focus on the negative for a moment. People perceived as poor listeners are those who come across as competitive, those who focus on identifying errors in the reasoning or logic of the other, and those who are using periods of silence to get ready to make their next point. In other words, bad listeners are those who are actually trying to win the conversation. Let's walk through a handful of practical ideas to help us grow in this essential skill of listening, to draw in those who are currently turned off by our evangelism methods of proclamation alone. Number 1, become curious. People are so interesting, and yet we can tend to minimize them into a conversion opportunity. It is much easier to authentically ask more questions and facilitate deep conversations when we communicate and embody an approach that says, I really want to know what you think and who you are. Number 2, ask until asked, and then ask some more. Often, when I'm hanging out with someone who's not a Christian, I'll ask questions about them until they ask me a genuine question about my faith. I don't lead with declarations. I wait until they ask me a question about me. And if the question is more intellectual or theological, I'll generally turn it back to them to see what they think. I'm more interested in sharing my story or thoughts when there's an obvious desire for it. Remember, this was Jesus' approach. Once they ask me a question that's personal to my own faith experience, then I will share with them. There's something powerful about waiting until someone wants to hear from you. And some people never get there. At least not in the short period of time, and that's okay. We can't force feed someone who isn't open to a meal. Number 3, affirm. According to the Harvard Business Review article, What Great Listeners Actually Do, a level 5 listener begins identifying the feelings and emotions of the speaker. But not only that, they're also empathizing and even validating those feelings, even if they don't agree with the premise of what is being shared. Just because someone doesn't follow Jesus and adhere to the orthodox convictions of the Christian faith doesn't mean their viewpoints are without any merit at all. I firmly believe we have much to learn from everyone around us. There is some good we can discover. There is some common ground that can bring us together. When was the last time you or I had an evangelistic conversation and instead of arguing with the other person or trying to change their mind, we listened with the intent of solely validating their feelings on the issue, whether or not we agree? What impact will that have on the spiritual progress another is making? That's an entirely new level of conversation. This keeps the relationship building and the conversation going over time. It communicates belonging before belief. There may be moments to further discuss the details of theology or revisit the things we disagree on, but if those conversations are built on the foundations of affirmation and commonly held beliefs, they will bear much more fruit. Number 4, learn together. If the relationship is developed long enough and the spiritual conversations are building, consider reading or watching something together. Books, articles, or films can be some of the best conversation starters, giving you a shared opportunity to ask questions and find out more about what the other person believes. Rather than creating a situation where we come across as a know-it-all holding every answer to every question, invite someone to come alongside you as you keep growing too. This is also one invitation where activities like the Alpha Course provide some help. Giving some content like the Alpha Film series about faith that can generate a learning together environment. Number 5, provide a space for conversation. If you're a church leader, think about all the various environments you're creating within your congregation. Sunday mornings, evening classes, online services, small groups, etc., all are primarily one-directional speaking, or are they primarily for the already convinced? Have you created any spaces within the life of your church for conversation, especially for conversation for those who are considered outsiders, where people with doubt and question and even hostilities can work out their faith as a conversational journey over time? When we reply to deep and complex questions with hard and fast answers, we are unintentionally sending messages to the people asking the questions that say, I'm right and you are wrong. You aren't good enough to have figured this out. I have thought this through with wisdom and you have not. Inadvertently saying, you aren't accepted in our community because of the way you think. Listening reminds people they're valued, even in their process of doubt and questioning and faith exploration, and that we appreciate them before they change their beliefs. If we can do that, if we can be good listeners, people are far more likely to sort out what is true. They might even discover something they're willing to devote the rest of their lives to.